Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Danis for Capital Athletics, and this is the men's basketball podcast for Capital Men's Basketball. And joining me now, the head coach of the men's basketball program, Coach Damon Goodwin. Coach, it was recently Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was. The food was good, the basketball was not. So we're working on our recovering from our games over Thanksgiving and trying to get better. That's what we're trying to do right now.
Today's podcast, I want to focus on the state of college athletics. Your thoughts on the one and done rule. This is something that's been a big topic, specifically at the Division I level. I'm sure people would have loved to have seen Kyrie Irving play an extra year at Duke, or Kevin Durant play an extra year at Texas, just to name a few examples. Your thoughts on these players that come to college for 1 year and then instantly jump to the NBA?
Well, obviously we don't have to worry about that at our level, but certainly at the Division I think it's difficult for coaches to recruit and build a program sometimes with those guys. Now, it's hard to tell a kid to turn down $4, $5, $6 million, whatever they're making, though, and I understand that. And if a kid can go ahead and do that, the more power to him. I just think that adds another obstacle, though, for coaches and coaching staffs at college basketball to figure out how to manage that. Managing that situation is something that again, I'm not going to have to do here at Capital, but certainly the bigger schools, they have to figure that out, and it's just one more obstacle for them.
I'm sure you get a chance to watch March Madness and also watch some NBA games here and there. Do you feel like the quality of play at both the collegiate level and the professional level have gone down because of the one and done rule?
No, not at all. No. I think it's different. I think the game has evolved. There's a lot more dribble drive right now than there was 10, 15 minutes ago. It doesn't mean it's less quality. It just means it's a little bit different. I think the way the game is officiated has changed in the last 10, 15 years. Some people would say it's better because it's probably a more offensive game than maybe it was in the past. But it changes like everything else. It's every other profession changes. Basketball continues to change, and as coaches, we need to deal with that. And I do not think the basketball is any less better right now than it was before. I just think it's different in a lot of different aspects.
If it were up to you, would you get rid of the 1 year rule? Would you extend it to 2 years, perhaps 3 years? A player would have to leave after their junior year. How would you handle that?
You know, kids in those situations, you go to college to find a job, to make a living, to support a family, and I think it's really hard for anyone to tell a kid that he can't do that. If a kid went to Ohio State to major in business and had a job, had an offer for a couple $1 million to work for Merrill Lynch after a year or two, who would tell him not to go? It's hard to tell a kid not to do that, especially when these schools right now will help them finish their education. If a kid goes to wherever, Michigan State, I'm sure if that kid comes back, and financially it's probably not going to be an issue anyhow, but if he plays there for 1 or 2 years, most of the time I think those schools will help him finish his education there as well. I think Greg Oden is doing that at Ohio State as we speak.
So that actually leads into my next point. The term student athlete. Clearly here at Capital, you come here, you play sports, you graduate in 4 years, you have something to lean back on once your sports career is over. But at the Division I level, that term has come under fire in recent years. There's been talk of stipends, whether college athletes should get paid or not. I'm interested in what your thoughts are on that topic.
Well, I think the system is broken, to tell you the truth. Money has certainly dictated a lot of things, television schedules, game times. You come to a small college game, it's one experience. You go to a big-time college game, it's a different experience, simply from the fact that there's 4 timeouts each half, and those timeouts usually last 2.5 minutes long. It's a different game. And again, I'm not saying it's better or it's worse. It's just different from that standpoint. I think money and television at that level has certainly dictated a lot of things that 10, 15 years ago they didn't. And I do think it's maybe hypocritical for a university to sell the rights of their name and their school to a video company and put players' likeness on those teams, and for the university to get the money and the players that don't. I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. Or put their name on a jersey and sell that jersey It's a difficult question. It's a difficult situation for a lot of schools. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I do believe that money has dictated a lot of things in college athletics that again, 15, 20 years ago, it didn't dictate. And I think there has to be some changes that need to be made. The student athlete is the kid out there, men or women, that are making a lot of sacrifices as well, and I don't think people quite understand that sometimes.
That being said, here at the Division III level, like I said, you don't have to worry about players leaving early for the pros.
Right.
You know, the fact they are true student athletes in that they get degrees, they have something to lean back on after their athletic careers are over. That has to be real enjoyable for you because you don't have to worry about those extracurricular activities, and they can just be students. You just have to coach, right?
Right, it is. I mean, and I think it's at most schools, Division I, II, or III, I believe that's the way it happens most of the time. I think in the media we read about the one and dones, and we think it's that way for everybody, but it's not. I mean, it's a very, very small percentage of kids that actually do that in football, basketball, whatever sport that you're going to talk about. I believe most of the kids in every level of the NCAA, that's the way they view it. And certainly at Capital, that's the way it is. You know, they're here to go to school first. They're here to play basketball second, and historically in our program, they've done a very good job of that. I'm proud of the student athletes that we have, and I'm proud of the way they handle things.
Another thing that I've been noticing about the state of college athletics, you know, I'm a history buff. It used to be that when you throw out the term arms race, you were talking about you know, the rivalry between the USA and the USSR.
Sure.
Now in collegiate athletics, it seems like who can build a bigger stadium,
right,
who can build a bigger practice facility, who can have better facilities, period. You see that at the Division I level, Division II, Division III, obviously with the Cap Center coming here with fruition. Your thoughts on this building of all these facilities across the country?
Well, I agree with you. There certainly is, quote, an arms race in college athletics. Even at our level, we built our facility 14 years ago, and at the time I thought, man, this is great. We have one of the best in the country. And I still believe our facility is top notch, but even in our own conference, a lot of teams have caught up somewhat. And when you take that to a higher level, Division I think that certainly gets increased. There are certainly the haves and have-nots of every level. And again, at Division I level, you're always reading about the haves, the 5 conferences. In the football, collegiate football, are certainly the haves, and everybody else may be the have-nots from certain aspects. And I'm not sure where that's going. I think that's a difficult decision for those schools, and it's going to be a difficult decision for the NCAA in the future.
Do you think it's skewed a little bit? What I'm trying to say is that maybe that money should be going towards more of the university rather than athletics. Do you feel like there's too much money being spent on athletics, especially at the Division I level, or is it good for the university in the end?
Well, athletics is the one making the money. That would be my reply as a coach. I don't know those answers. I'm not, you know, we don't deal with those kind of situations at Capital. I'm not familiar enough with that situation, but I can tell you that you know, those 5 conferences are making a lot of money, and they should support the university and the students of the university, not only the student athletes. I mean, there certainly should be you know, that scenario, that it's not just supporting athletics, but at the other end of the spectrum, you have coaches trying to recruit, and you have athletic departments trying to build, and certainly some of that money should go back to them to help them continue to do that, if that's the way the things are going to be. And from right now, the television money is you know, you're talking numbers that are so big right now. In the foreseeable future, it's probably going to continue that way, and you would think that you know, you need to continue to invest in the athletic part of it. I do believe the student athletes should probably get a little bit more than what they're getting right now. I don't have an argument with that. How to do that, I have no idea. And I think that's probably the next thing the NCAA is going to determine.
Before we end the podcast today, Coach, again, we always end our podcast with the random question of the week. Here's this week's random question. If you had to name a favorite band, you know, whether it be rock and roll or whatever music genre you like, who's your favorite band? Who's your go-to band that puts you in a good mood, I guess?
It's a country singer named Janet Kramer.
Really?
Yeah, saw her in concert about a year ago. Some country, you know, people probably know her, not many do. Sugarland, who a lot of people have heard of in country, and those two are probably my two favorite bands.
So a country guy. How about that? Well, you learned something new about head coach Damon Goodwin. Coach, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. This has been the Capital Men's Basketball Podcast, as we were joined today by head coach Damon Goodwin. I'm Charlie Danis for Capital Athletics. We'll see you next time.